So this video is going to be a guide to basically melee classes. What I'm going to talk about is I'm going to be talking about all of the skill sets that pair well with Battlerage. I'm going to be explaining every skill, and then I'm going to be explaining the possible classes that you can play with those skill sets. I'm going to talk about pretty much the most common classes, not every single possible class combination, but the ones that you're most likely to play. I'm not going to be going over Swiftblade, just pretty much Battlerage that you'll play with a two-hand melee weapon. And then I'm also going to leave some timestamps. Alright, so here's a preview of what skill sets and classes I'm going to be talking about. So pretty much to create a melee class, of course you're going to have Battlerage, and then you're going to want to have either Shadowplay or Auramancy or both. I would highly recommend that pretty much whatever class you play, you're going to want to have either Shadowplay or Auramancy, because they just pair really well with Battlerage and they provide a lot of utility. And that goes for honestly almost every class, not just melee classes. And then we want to pair those with either Occultism, Witchcraft, Defense, or Songcraft. And I'm pretty much going to be explaining all the skills and all these skill sets, as well as the classes and what they're good for. In general, pretty much a really quick summary of each skill set. With Shadowplay, if you play with Shadowplay, you're basically going to be playing more of like a DPS assassin type class. With Auramancy, you're going to have a little bit more defense, you're going to be tankier. This is better if you're trying to play on like the front line. Shadowplay is good for being an assassin. Occultism and Witchcraft, these are both CC skill sets, which pair really well with Battlerage. Defense, pretty self-explanatory. Defense is going to help you stay alive. And then Songcraft is good for various buffs and debuffs. Alright, so first up, we're going to talk about Battlerage. So with Battlerage, obviously this is going to be your main skill set as a melee. It's going to provide you with a lot of damage, mobility, defense. It's really a really complete skill tree. So starting of course with your first attack, triple slash. So this is basically your pretty much your auto attack. This is going to be your main form of sustained DPS. Pretty much after CCing a enemy, you hit them with usually you'll hit them with whirlwind and then just triple slash them until they die. If you're PvEing, you just triple slash until things die. If you're in PvP, you just triple slash until people die. Next charge, so this is pretty much a gap closer with a 13 meter range. Charge is also going to snare a target, so basically what snare means is that it's going to stop them from being able to move or turn. They'll still be able to attack and do things, but they won't be able to move. And so charge just looks like that. Really good for closing distance, also good for getting off snare. So if you are engaging on an enemy, it's good to use charge first so that you stop them and then you can attack them from there while they can't move. So next is Battle Focus. So Battle Focus basically increases parry rate and melee crit damage. This is basically just gonna give you a little damage boost. Personally, I think Battle Focus is kind of a waste of a skill point. I honestly never take it, but if you're looking for a real glass cannon build, then that's something that you can try. Whirlwind, this is going to be one of your main sources of damage. With Whirlwind, basically you just spin 3 times and it does a lot of damage. It does even more if you combo that with trips or bleeding. So you always want to trip your target first, or inflict bleeding and then use Whirlwind and get bonus damage. Next is going to be Sun Earth. So Sun Earth is pretty much your hardest hitting attack, and the downside of it is that it does have a cast time. So it will take a while to, basically you have to stand in place and then cast it. and then basically it creates this AoE on the ground, and then depending on which ancestral you use, it can either increase, it can either decrease the amount of damage that you receive. You can see with the red one, it decreases your received damage by 30%. If you use the mist ancestral, it will increase the damage that enemies take when they're standing in the AoE. So depending on how you're playing, you can adjust that. But this is a 100% essential skill. If you're playing Battlerage, you need to have Thunder Earth. Frenzy, this is pretty much for PvE only. Basically what Frenzy does is it's going to increase your melee attack at the cost of your defense. So it's going to decrease your physical magic defense, but increase your melee attack, and pretty much you also have to continuously kill things in order to keep the buff up. If you stop killing, then it's going to stun you. So it's good if you're farming mobs that are relatively low health that you can kill in under 10 seconds. And it just makes farming a lot faster, but not something that you'll use in PvP. Precision Strike, so this is pretty much kind of like an execution style attack. Basically when you stand behind a target and you do Precision Strike, it's going to do bonus damage, like that. And Precision Strike is really good if you're playing like an assassin type build. If you're playing more of like a tankier frontline build, then I usually don't take Precision Strike, but generally if you're playing with Shadowplay, then you want to take Precision Strike as well. It's also good for farming because basically if you use the Gale Ancestral, which is this one, every time you kill a target with Precision Strike, it's going to reset the cooldown. Next is Tiger Strike. So Tiger Strike is another gap closing ability. With Tiger Strike, basically you dash through up to 6 enemies like this, and for every if you take the life ancestral, for every enemy you hit, it's going to give you 1 second of CC immunity. So this is really good for PvP. You can use this when you engage into like an enemy or into like a group, into a raid, and it's gonna make you immune to CC, so they won't be able to stun you or anything like that. Also in PvE, this is really good because it decreases received healing, and so whenever you're fighting bosses that heal a lot, you'll see your raid leader tell melees to use Tiger Strike as much as possible, because basically Tiger Strike is going to decrease the healing on those PvE bosses that heal a lot. So next is Bondbreaker. Bondbreaker basically removes Snare. This is, I consider this to be an essential skill for any melee build, especially if you're trying to do PvP, because there are so many situations where you get snared, and so Bondbreaker just breaks Snare and lets you move. Next is Terrifying Roar. So Terrifying Roar, this basically inflicts weakness on enemies within a 5-meter radius, and it also increases the amount of time that they are tripped, and so this is really good to combo with any trip combos that you have. Basically you use this before tripping them, and then it's going to increase the amount of time that they're tripped. Really powerful. Also it combos with Fear, so if you use Fear and then a Terrifying Roar, it's gonna trip targets as well. This is really good for if you're playing with Witchcraft, because it combos with Fear, or if you're trying to be like a really glass cannon. This is also good for keeping your enemies on the ground. Personally, I only really use this with Witchcraft, but if you want to use it with any other class, you can as well, since it combos with Trip. Hammer Toss, this is basically your stun attack. The way that Hammer Toss works is it's a range attack, but the thing about it is that it throws the hammer basically at the target's location, but not at the target. And so if you're throwing it at a moving target, it's not going to hit if they move out of the way. And so with Hammer Toss, you want to make sure that you use it when the target is not moving first. So example of that, easy example is basically with a snare. So if you snare them first with charge, then Hammer Toss, they're going to be snared and then they won't be able to move. And then you can use Hammer Toss to get a stun on them, and the stun is going to last a lot longer than the snare. And so it's going to be a lot more powerful, since when you're stunned you can't do anything at all. And then last is going to be behind enemy lines. This is basically a very good mobility skill. Also does some damage, and it also combos with your Whirlwind for a trip. Basically, whenever you use behind enemy lines, target will be slowed, and so when you slow them and you combo that with Whirlwind, it's going to do extra damage as well as trip them. So like that, Whirlwind, and then behind enemy lines, and then Whirlwind, and the target is tripped. Alright, and then you can also use that, like I said, as a general mobility skill. Just kind of jumping around. You can use behind enemy lines on like different elevations, so if you want to like jump up on something, you can use it. You can also use it if you have like really good ping. You can drop down from the sky and then use behind enemy lines on the ground to avoid fall damage. But if your ping is over like 20, you probably won't be able to do that. And now looking at the passive abilities. So first one, so basically whenever you parry an attack, it resets all of your Battlerage cooldowns. This is really powerful, because whenever you're in, well actually both PvP and PvE, you're gonna parry a lot, and so pretty much this passive is gonna go off almost like every single time it's available. So every 12 seconds you can expect your cooldowns to be completely reset. Regular charge, so whenever you use charge, Tiger Strike behind enemy lines, it gives you decreased received physical damage. So this is really good for fighting against other melees or archers or gunners that do physical damage. Puncture is going to increase, it's going to decrease your enemy's physical defense. So it pairs really well with physical defense penetration gems, which is why you want to, if you're focused on PvP, you want to build a lot of defense penetration. This one basically increases your melee crit damage and attack speed for every attack. Pretty basic. Next one increases your skill damage 10%. This one's really important to have, so you want to make sure you have 7 points to get this. And then the last 8-point passive. This one is gonna basically increase melee critical hit if you have a two-handed weapon. Actually, if you have any weapon. And then also, if you have a two-handed weapon, it's gonna let you parry range attacks. This applies mostly against archers, so this is really good for defense against archers, which probably isn't really relevant now since gunners exist and you can't really parry gunner attacks, unfortunately, but it's there, and it's good against archers. And then now let's talk about the ancestrals. So starting off with Triple Slash. So with Triple Slash, basically you pretty much always want to have Quake. Quake is going to be an AoE. The other two, these are single target triple slashes. So what that means is that if your enemy is far away from you, you're not going to be able to hit them. So big triple slash, big AoE, it's going to hit everything, it's going to do a lot of damage. It's going to be, it is slower than these two. These two are faster, but honestly, like when you build enough attack speed, yeah, you don't even notice it. Precision Strike, the green one is going to be good. It's going to be best for PvE. The red one, the basic one, is going to be probably best for PvP because it has a shorter cooldown. Generally in PvP, you might not kill people all the time with Precision Strike, so you don't have to worry about the cooldown reset. So just use the normal one and get a shorter cooldown overall. Tiger Strike, basically you want to have life for the majority of PvP. Lightning, this is going to be a single target one. This one is okay if you're focused on just like being like a single target assassin, but honestly I would still take life. The basic one, this one has a shorter cooldown, so if you're doing PvE and you just want to have more Tiger Strikes to fight against bosses, then this one is good to have. For behind enemy lines, pretty much the basic one compared to the green one, the basic one is going to have a larger circle size that hits. The green one has a shorter, or not shorter but a smaller AoE. So generally I take the basic one. The green one, it decreases the cooldown of charge if you hit something, but honestly this not really useful, so I just use the basic one for the bigger AoE. And then if you want to use stone, this one basically trips targets whenever they're feared, so this one combos really well with Witchcraft as well. Sunder Earth, so basically the basic one is going to decrease your received damage, make you tankier. The mist one is going to increase received damage of your enemies, so this one's more defensive, this one's more offensive, and this one we don't even look at that one. I don't know why. I don't know why you would take this one at all. And then Frenzy, generally you want to use the blue one, because with the red one, this one will make you stronger, but it will literally decrease your defenses all the way down to 0. This is basically like the most ultra glass cannon ability honestly in the entire game. So if you're in a situation where you want that, then okay, but the blue one is gonna give you a little bit more of your defenses while still giving you some pretty good damage. Alright, so next let's talk about Shadowplay. So Shadowplay is basically a utility skill tree that's gonna kind of help you if you want to be more of like a assassin type class. So starting from the top, basically Rapid Strike. This is sort of like an auto attack, but we don't really use this because Triple Slash is just stronger, so Rapid Strike, you never take it. Poison weapons, this will coat your weapons in poison. And then basically whenever you attack a target, it's going to apply the poison. Usually I don't really take this as a melee. The reason why is because the poison damage scales off of magic damage, so it doesn't really, you won't really get a strong poison off of it. But you can also use it to decrease, with the other ancestral, you can use it to decrease the target's evasion, which can be useful in some scenarios. Pin down, this is basically your bleeding attack, so whenever you use pin down, it's going to apply bleeding to the target, which combos really well with basically your whirlwind or your Sunder Earth. Whenever the target is bleeding, they take more damage from those skills. So pin down is whenever you have Shadowplay, you pretty much want to use this as early as possible so that you get the bleeding off as soon as possible. Next is Dropback. So Dropback is a mobility skill that basically lets you jump either forward or backwards like that. So that's a forward dropback. Dropback has a lot of uses. You can use it, for example, if you use the forward one, or actually, depending on your own personal preference, you can use the forward one or back one. If you use the back one, it's good for disengaging. It's also good for creating space between your target if you want to use one of your range attacks. So like for example, a popular combo would be something like using the backwards backdrop, and then also another thing is that backdrop combos with Sunder Earth. Basically whenever you use backdrop, it will make Sunder Earth insta cast, and so what a common combo would be backdrop into charge and then insta cast Sunder Earth like that. And so that way, instead of standing there and casting Sunder Earth, you can hit dropback, and then that'll make Sunder Earth insta cast. Overwhelm, this is a mobility skill. It kind of takes a while to cast. I don't really use this one personally, just because the range is not huge, so it's not an excellent gap closer, but it is an option if you want it. Stalker's Mark, we don't really use this because it's really only for archers and mages. Wallop is going to be a single target DPS attack. It doesn't really combo with anything, so we don't really use it because it takes time to cast, and then it doesn't do like a ton of damage. Stealth, pretty basic. Basically you just go invisible. You can use this to drop aggro whenever you're in PvE. If you're in PvP, you can use stealth to sneak behind your target, and then stealth, if you have this passive right here, whenever you're stealth, you're basically going to accumulate stacks of Bloodthirst, and the more stacks you get, the more damage you do when you come out of stealth. And so if you're looking to be an assassin, that's a really good skill to have. Well, I would honestly suggest always having stealth when you play with Shadowplay. And then Freerunner, this is basically a move speed and attack speed buff, so this is also good to have. You just pop it and it increases your move speed and attack speed. Nice little buff. Shadow Smite, this is a backstabbing attack. Basically, if you have the lightning ancestral, it's going to teleport you behind the target, and so this combo is also with stuns. If you stun a target and then you Shadow Smite, it's going to trip, and so your main stun is going to be your Hammer Toss. So the most basic combo with this one is going to be Hammer Toss, Shadow Smite, and that's going to be, it's basically going to trip your target like that, and then you can just go ahead and whirlwind them. And honestly, if you just get those 3 skills off, it's gonna kill most people. So Shadow Smite is a must-have, and you want to combo that with Hammer Toss. Leech is gonna steal a random buff from an enemy. This is good in PvP. Also, it steals Conversion Shield always, and Creatus Action, which isn't really useful if you're a melee, because those are defensive against mages, but it is a good little thing to have if you have like a mage on your team. You can use Leech and steal Conversion Shield. Throw a Dagger. This is basically going to decrease attack speed and cast time of a target, and also it cancels Warding Light, Warding Mist, Conversion Shield, Protective Wings, Insulating Lance, Mana Barrier, and so this is really good for basically removing like the most protective buffs. Like for example, the main one is going to be like Mana Barrier. Usually when a target gets Mana Barriered, they almost like take no damage. It's insane. So if you throw a Dagger, you remove Mana Barrier and you can kill them. This one is good to have if you're going for that super assassin build. It does, since this is the last skill, it does require you to have 7 points in Shadowplay, which is a lot. Personally, I very rarely take Throw Dagger, but if you are looking to be assassin, then it can be a good skill to have. And then for your passives, first one, increases attack speed, increase invasion rate. With the assault, basically whenever you get a crit, it increases your attack speed. Really nice. Bloodthirst, like I said, whenever you go stealth, you get Bloodthirst stacks that basically makes you stronger when you come out of stealth. With the Toxins, increases duration of poison and bleeding. That's good to have to combo with your pin down. And then last one, decreases your Shadowplay skill cooldowns by 20%. Now looking at ancestral abilities, so Overwhelm, I would usually use Flame since it does more melee damage. Drawback, so the basic one is going to be the backwards drop, and then the other one is going to be the forward drop. It's really up to you which one you want. Generally, I would say if you're playing with like Witchcraft, usually I will use the backwards drop. Other classes I'll use the front back drop, the forward drop, I guess, so that it's easier for like getting close to an enemy like that. Shadow Smite, you always want to have lightning because it's going to teleport you behind. For free runner, usually the basic one, the flame one is good for if you're farming. It's kind of like Frenzy, you need to keep killing enemies in order to maintain the buff. But that buff is going to give you, let's see, so this one gives 30% move speed, 42 attack speed. Actually, so it's a little bit weaker than the normal one, but you can basically keep this one up forever, and so that's why it's good for farming, because this one, it only lasts for 30 seconds. This one, as long as you keep killing enemies, you'll keep the buff up forever. Poison weapons, this is one that you want to use to basically decrease evasion. And then Stalker's Mark, that's one that we really don't use. Alright, so next let's talk about Auramancy. So Auramancy is basically a very defensive skill set. This is honestly the best for just keeping you alive. So if you're trying to play kind of like a front line or just have a little bit more extra durability, Auramancy is really good. So first skill, Thwart, basically this gives you a 5,000 health shield. Thwart, you want to use that pretty much as much as possible. You can also stack it, so you can use it multiple times before going into a fight. And it's also going to inflict Shaken on nearby enemies, which decreases skill damage, attack speed, and increases cast time. So it's really good to use when you're nice and up close. Comet Spoon. This is going to basically make a trail like that and it's like a little thing that lets you run faster. That's pretty much all it's good for. It's good for mobility. So if you're like doing like dungeons where you need to be fast, you can use Combat Spoon to basically just help you run faster. Convergence Shield. This is basically going to give you a giant magic shield that's going to make you like almost immortal against mages. So for fighting against mages, Auramancy is the best bet. It's basically going to reflect magic damage if you use their flame essential. So basically, whenever mages hit you, they're going to be damaging themselves. Versus Implosion. So basically, this is a skill that is an AoE pull. Whenever you have enemies next to you in a 10-meter range, you can use Implosion, and it pulls them close to you. Well, not a good example, but yeah, pretty much this is really good for in PvE when you're like trying to group up mobs. You can use Implosion to pull them together, and you can also do the same thing in PvP. Teleport. This is a really good mobility skill. Basically, it just teleports you forward like that, and then it also has a chance to reset the cooldown, so you can get multiple teleports off at once. And then Courageous Action. This is basically going to make you immune to any Fear, Sleep, Bubble Trap, Freeze, Silence, Petrification, Taunt, Telekinesis, and Binding. So mainly that's going to be the CC that comes from Witchcraft and Sorcery. So again, when you're fighting anybody with Witchcraft or Sorcery, you can use Courageous Action and basically just walk through all their CC. Meditate. This is basically you just stand there and meditate, and it gives you mana. So it's good for like if you're farming, you can use Meditate to regen your mana. Shrug It Off is basically going to be like Courageous Action, except the Shrug It Off is going to be you can use it to actually remove the debuffs if you get it. So like if you get feared or you get put in a bubble trap, you hit Shrug It Off and then it'll remove that CC. So these two are very similar. Generally, if you had to choose one, I probably would go with like Shrug It Off, and the reason why is because this one with Courageous Action, there's a chance that if you use it, you don't always get hit by the CC. This one, as soon as you get hit by the CC, you use Shrug It Off, and then it just instantly removes it. So it's a guaranteed counter to Witchcraft and Sorcery. Health Lift. This is going to increase you and nearby allies' health for 20 seconds. Really good. More health. Stay alive longer. Banishment. This is a unique skill. Basically, it increases skill mana cost, but also the main thing that you use banishment for is if you snare a target, they won't be able to glide. And so generally, in most cases, you would only use this if you have a Kraken Scepter, because it does an AoE snare, and then you can just use banishment right on top of it. Generally, if you don't have a Kraken Scepter, you probably won't use banishment, but it can be really good for basically whenever you snare a target and then you use banishment, they won't be able to glide, and so it's really, really good in PvP. Well, these guys can't glide, so can't really see. Protective Wings. Basically, this gives you a good amount of magic reduction, magic damage reduction, but you actually want to use a different essential for this one that gives you kind of a shield. And then Bracing Blast. This is one of the most troll abilities in the game. Basically, what Bracing Blast does is it pushes everything away from you. So let me get a group first, like this, and then I'm gonna pull them together. And then basically, whenever you use Bracing Blast, it pushes everything away like that. And so this is something that you want to be very careful with. If you're in like a raid doing PvP and you push enemies away, that can really annoy people. But the most useful use of the skill is whenever you're on a boat and somebody jumps on your boat, you can use Bracing Blast and push them off. And so this is really a really good defensive skill for like ocean PvP. Go into your passives. So the first one converts received damage to health. This is really, really good for basically, I mean, it's basically a free damage reduction, which is always good. This decreases fear and sleep, which is going to come from Witchcraft. This gives you 1% chance to be invincible after receiving damage, and this actually, even though it says 1%, it actually goes off very often. So this is a really good skill to have. This is also one of the reasons why Auramancy is so OP at keeping you alive, is because it gives you that chance to go invincible. Warding Light, so basically from Thwart, you can stack Warding Light, and then for this one, whenever you cast Thwart, it decreases Auramancy cooldown. So like for example, if I do my Combat Spoon, and then I hit Thwart, you can see the cooldown goes from 8 all the way to 2 seconds. So really good for decreasing cooldowns. And then Unwavering Will, basically this gives you 3% mag damage reduction whenever a mage crits on you. So this is really good for fighting against mages. Auramancy in general just makes you really tanky against magic. Looking at the Ancestrals, so with Thwart, generally I use the basic one. With Convergent Shield, you use the Flame one. This one is gonna be the best at blocking magic damage in general. Protective Wings, if you use this one, you want to use a stone, because this is basically gonna give you immunity once you. The way that the stone abilities work is once you receive a certain amount of damage, it activates the buff. And so this basically gives you immunity to magic damage and silence, which is super OP. Teleport, you want to use lightning because that's the one that's gonna allow you to teleport multiple times like that. And then for implosion, you want to use quake because this is considered a melee attack, and so whenever you're silenced, you'll still be able to use it, as opposed to these other ones. These are considered to be spells, and so if you're silenced, you won't be able to use implosion. When it comes to melee attacks, when you're silenced, you're still able to use them. So you want to use Quake so that you're able to use it at any time. Alright, so now let's talk about Occultism. So Occultism is basically a crowd control skill set. So this is really good for holding down enemies and stopping them from moving. So basically with Occultism, starting with the first skill, Crippling Mire, this is going to basically be a slow, so you can target this, and it can actually also, if you use the Quick Ancestral, it will target multiple enemies, and it can slow all of them. And so this is a really good combo with your Whirlwind. Basically use Crippling Mire, it slows everything, and then you just use Whirlwind, and it's a trip. Next is Absorb Life Force, so this is basically going to, it's a single target attack that will heal yourself, damage your enemy, and also decrease their received healing. And this is really powerful against healers. Basically, it decreases received healing by 90%. So if you're fighting a healer, or if you're fighting somebody that's getting healed, you want to make sure that you have Absorb Life Force and you use it so that they don't get healed. Also, if you use this on somebody and then they go more than 20 meters away from you, then they'll get stunned. And so it's also really good for stopping people from gliding away. Play Dead, this basically just, like I said, it lets you play dead. This is also good for dropping aggro, so if you're in a situation where like usually basically in PvE, where you need to drop aggro, you can use Play Dead. This also combos with Death's Vengeance, which I'll basically just talk about now. Basically, when you use Death Vengeance and then you use Play Dead, or you die, or like you actually die, then basically you will explode. So it's gonna look something like this. Basically, you have Death's Vengeance applied, and then Play Dead, and you explode, and it's gonna be a stun. But also, since you're dead, you also drop aggro. So if you use it in PvE, it's not really useful, since when you drop aggro, the mobs will get away from you. It is good for PvP. Basically, whenever you die, you become a bomb that stuns everybody, so it's useful in raids. Cursed Thorns, you can use this on an enemy, and then basically they sprout thorns. Honestly, I don't really know how this thing works. I've never seen it actually be useful. So I don't even use this. Shadow Step. This teleports you behind an enemy or an ally, like that. Good mobility skill. Good if you're trying to sneak up on people. General assassin type things. Boneyard. This is a really troll ability. Basically, you trap an enemy in a boneyard, and they cannot get out of it unless they break it, or if they glide around it. So this is good if you just want to troll somebody, or if you want to hold somebody in place. Summon crows. So this is good for basically, it will reveal any enemies that are in stealth within 30 meters. So if you're playing against somebody and they go stealth, you hit summon crows and you'll be able to see them. Also this combos with impale. Basically whenever a target is impaled, you use summon crows and it decreases their accuracy. And then going on to Hellspear, this is going to be your impale. Basically it's an AoE impale, which basically means that in the 6 meter radius around you, it's going to impale targets like that, and impaling is sort of the same as a stun. Basically they can't do anything when they're impaled. That's kind of your main form of CC from Occultism. And then Pain Harvest, basically whenever you use this and you receive critical strikes, it decreases custom cooldowns. This combos with some skills. If you're melee, it doesn't really combo with melee, so we don't really use this as a melee. Shadow Vortex, this is an AoE little like tornado thingy, and then basically whenever enemies are in here, they get pulled in, and it's basically kind of holds them there. They can get out if they use if they glide out, or if they use like movement skills, but they won't be able to normally walk out. So this is good for clumping up a group of enemies together, and then just killing them in a ball. Summon Wraith. This is going to be a target. Basically you drop a Wraith on the ground and it slows any enemies around, and since it's a slow, it combos really well with your Whirlwind. So you summon Wraith and then Whirlwind, and then it trips your targets, does extra damage. And then I already talked about this Vengeance. So looking at the passives, so first one decreases your cast time attacks and increases your attack speed, really good. Second one increases the duration of impale and stun, so makes your CC last longer. And then this one makes it so that your impale and stun don't miss. Burning Brand, so basically whenever you hit an enemy, it's gonna, with your CC, it's gonna decrease your skill cooldowns. And then it's also gonna reduce your enemy's skill damage and healing. Next one, basically whenever you hit somebody with Crippling Mire of Life Force, decreases Occultism cooldowns. And then last one, basically whenever enemies miss you with an attack, they get impaled. And this one's really really nice to have, but usually you probably won't take 8 points in Occultism. Now looking at the Ancestrals, so Crippling Mire. Typically I'll use the Quake one because, like I said, it is an AoE, so it can hit multiple enemies. You can also go for, I think the Gale one has a longer range, but it's a single target, so kind of whatever your preference. Typically you're going to be close up anyways when you use it, so I'll use Quake. For Hellspear, you want to use Quake because this, just like versus Implosion, this makes it a melee attack, so you'll be able to use this whenever you're silenced. All of these count as spells, so you won't be able to use them if you get silenced. Summon Wraith, you want to use Mist because this one makes it a target ability, as opposed to the other two. They basically make you into the Wraith, so you basically stand still and just do nothing. So you want to use the Mist one because that one is an actual, it makes an actual Wraith that you place anywhere on the ground. Shadow Step, you can use the basic one. If you use the lightning one, this one you can use multiple times, but it's kind of janky, I don't really use it. And this one, I don't really understand what this one does, so usually I just use basic. Absorb Life Force, I use a flame because this one scales with melee damage. This one scales with magic damage. This one scales with magic damage as well. I don't even look at that. And then Crow, we just use the normal summon crows. Alright, so now let's talk about Witchcraft. So Witchcraft is another CC crowd control skill set, like Occultism, but Witchcraft is arguably more powerful, also has more utility. Occultism is kind of good for just like straight hard CC. Witchcraft, it's going to give you CC that lasts longer but is a little bit harder to control and use. It also gives you some mobility and some other tools. It's just a really good skill set overall that combos really well with Battlerage. So starting with Earthen Grip, basically this is an AoE snare. Well, you can have it, if you use Quick, it's going to be AoE. You can also use one that's a single target, but basically when you use Earthen Grip, it's just going to summon these hands from the ground that grip your enemies, and they are snared, and they can't move. And however, the thing about Witchcraft CC is that when you attack, it removes the CC like that. So Earthen Grip, it's good for holding on an enemy, but once you attack them, it's going to remove that snare. Enervate. This is a very powerful skill. Basically what Enervate does, a few things. Number one is it burns your target's mana, really good against mages. It decreases their received healing, so very good for countering against healers, and any target that's receiving healing. So this is really good for if you're in a raid. You can use Enervate on a target and they won't get healed and they'll die. And it also increases the duration of your stuns and trips. So use Enervate and then you trip a target, and their trip is going to last a lot longer. So that was like almost like a 5-second trip, which is a really long time. So you want to use Enervate basically before you use any trip combo, and you also want to use it on anyone that's getting healed so that they die. Bubble Trap, basically you put a bubble on the ground like that, and it traps them in a bubble. Whenever an enemy walks over to the bubble, they'll get pulled like that. You can also use an Ancestral that targets a single target and puts them in one bubble. So it kind of depends on whatever playstyle you're doing. If you attack them while they're in the bubble, it's gonna pop it like that. Next, Insidious Whisper. So this is gonna basically fear an enemy. Only thing though is that it does have a cast time. It has a pretty significant cast time, so I don't really use Insidious Whisper. Mirror Warp. This is honestly the best mobility skill in the game. Basically, you just teleport either left or right, and then if you use the flame one, you can do it multiple times, like that. And it scales off your attack speed. If you have more attack speed, then you'll be able to teleport more times. So it's really good for escaping or engaging. It's just a really good mobility skill. Purge. This is gonna remove debuffs from yourself or whoever you use it on. It's also gonna make you immune to Songcraft debuffs. So this is really good if you're fighting against healers, or if you're being like a frontline engaging type melee. You can use Purge on yourself to make you immune to charms, which is going to be the main debuff from Songcraft. Lassitude. This is basically going to it's a single target attack that basically slows down attack speed and move speed of an enemy, and then after a while they fall asleep. Again, if you attack them while they're getting slowed or while they're asleep, it's gonna remove it. So this is good if like you just hate one guy and don't even want to bother with him. Stillness is one of the most powerful abilities in archerage. Basically, it's an AoE silence. Silence basically means when you use it on enemies, they won't be able to use any skills, any spells. So if you use this on a clump of enemies, they can't do anything. And as you can see, it's a pretty large attack, so very useful to have. As a melee, you probably won't use this very much. Generally, other classes will use it, but that's something that's just good to know. Also, it will remove Songcraft effects. So if you are charmed and you use Stillness, it's gonna remove charm, and that's just really useful. Dehuda's Breath. This is a little wave attack that pushes enemies. It's kind of junky, so I very rarely use this one because it's just so weird. It's so hard to aim. I don't really get it. Focal Concussion. This one will sleep a target. If you are in PvP, the sleep is not going to last very long, so it's not very useful. Then Banshee's Wail. This is basically an AoE fear. Depending on which ancestral you use, you can have it set so that it either fears in a radius around you, like the stone one, just like that, and then it fears your enemies. Or you could also use the ancestral that makes it a target attack, so you can actually just drop the Banshee somewhere and it will fear whatever is there. And then the last one, Fiend's Knell. This summons a fiend that's basically like it's pretty much like a battle pet, I guess. It's not really good. No one uses this. We don't really use it. He kind of sucks. Yeah, I mean, yeah, do your thing, bro. Yeah, no one uses it. Look at passive abilities. So first one decreases your cast time and increases attack speed, so really good. Next one basically makes it so that your bubble traps, lassitude, and Seedless Whisper, and Banshee never miss. This one decreases the cast time for Earthen Grip. Pretty much all the casting abilities, this decreases your cast time. Exploitation, basically whenever you hit an enemy with fear, it's gonna decrease the cooldowns. Full Concussion, Enervate. Augment Witchcraft. This one is really powerful. This increases the duration of your CC by 20%, which is humongous. This one basically makes your bubble traps and your grips last longer. But usually, as a melee, you probably won't be taking enough points to get these last two passives. And then the last one decreases your cooldowns by 30%. Also really nice, but you probably will not be taking all 8 points to unlock that. Looking at your ancestrals, so with the Earthen Grip, basically the Quake is going to be the AoE one, and then Lightning is the one that you want to use for single target. Bubble Trap, you can use either the Mist one, that's going to be the circle that you place on the ground. The other ones are going to be single target. Banshee's Wail, Stone is going to be the one that fears around you. Mist is going to be a target Banshee, so you can basically drop that on the ground somewhere, just like that, and then it'll fear whatever's there. Mirror's Warp, you want Flame. Pretty much all the time you want Flame. Dehuda's Breath, I don't know. I don't even know. I never use it. Enervate, just use the basic one. If you use the Gale one, this one will do range damage. This one does magic damage, but well, I guess they're pretty much the same for you, since you don't do either ranged or magic damage. And then Seedless Whisper, I don't use it, so whatever. Alright, so now let's talk about defense. So with defense, even though it's called defense, honestly, as a melee, defense is going to provide you with more offensive options in terms of keeping yourself alive. Auramancy is going to do a lot. It's going to do a lot better job of keeping you alive. Defense is going to help if you combine it with Auramancy, but defense alone is not going to really make you as tanky as you want. So with skills, Shield Slam, you don't have a shield, so you're not going to use that. Bull Rush, you don't have a shield, so you're not going to use that, so we're not going to talk about those. Toughen, so basically Toughen is going to increase health regen. Also, if you use Toughen and then you use Triple Slash, it's going to increase your aggro. So if you're doing PvE and you're trying to get boss aggro, you can use Toughen and Triple Slash, and it's going to increase your aggro. Boastful Roar, this is the most powerful freaking debuff in the game. Basically, this inflicts distress on enemy, and as you can see, It decreases move speed, skill damage, attack speed, and received healing. It's really powerful. If you get hit by this, you're gonna feel it, and you're gonna feel terrible, and that's because it's so powerful. It combos really well with Battlerage, since it decreases move speed, that slows them down, and as you know, slow combos with Whirlwind. So you use Wilson Roar, and you use Whirlwind, and they get tripped, and they take more damage, and they're slowed, and they're weaker, and they get decreased receive healing. So, in other words, you use Wilson Roar, and it's almost like guaranteed kill target as long as you just don't stop attacking. Lasso, pull an enemy towards you. This is good to have when you're fighting like annoying ranged DPS, archers, gunners, mages. You lasso them. You can also lasso allies to you if you want to be a troll. Redoubt. Redoubt is sort of like courageous action, except Redoubt is for hard CC, so stun, impale, trip, snare, slow, shackle, and dive trap. So basically, whenever you use this, you're immune to those forms of CC, and so you want to use that before engaging in a fight. And then Shrug It Off, and then Refreshment is going to be just like Shrug It Off, where basically, just like Redoubt, it's going to counter those CCs, but it's basically going to remove that CC when it hits you. So when you get stunned or impaled or tripped or snared or slowed or shackled, you hit Refreshment and it removes that CC. And this is really strong. This is basically like it's like a free Defiance, literally. So you want to have Refreshment always. If you had to choose one, I would pretty much choose Refreshment, because it's going to remove that hard CC from you. Retribution. Basically, Retribution, it gives you like a little shield that basically does damage to enemies when they attack you. So this is really good for farming mobs. If you're in a PvE, you can use like Retribution, and like they'll literally just take damage whenever they attack you, like that. It also works in PvP, and then also if you use the different ancestral, it will increase your aggro. That's one that you want to use mainly if you're trying to be a PvE tank, but in most scenarios you want to just use Flame, which is going to be the one that does damage to enemies that attack you. Next is Reviling Cheer. So Reviling Cheer, if you use the Life Ancestral, it's going to give you a giant health boost. So it increases your max health, as you can see, by 20%. And the cool thing about this skill is that, as you can see, the buff lasts for 40 seconds, but the cooldown is 30 seconds, which basically means that you can keep this up infinitely. So you can permanently have 20% more health just by using the skill. Really good. If you're playing defense, this is one that you want to have. Imprison. Basically, this is going to create a wall around you. Depending on the ancestral, if you use the blue one, it's going to make a circle. If you use the basic one, it's going to create just a straight wall. So the circle one is useful if you're pulling enemies towards you with Implosion. You can trap them with the circle. The basic green wall, that's just a flat, straight wall. That one's good for countering enemy engages. And then invincibility, pretty basic. You hit this button and you can't take damage and nobody can do anything to you. So yeah, use that if you don't like to die, I guess. On the passives, so please block rate. You don't have a shield, so you don't block. This decreases stun and impale, so really good for playing against Occultism. Witchcraft defense is going to counter Occultism really well, kind of like how Auramancy counters Witchcraft and Sorcery. Shield of Steel, so this increases your physical defense by 6%, which is really good. It gives you a lot of physical defense, and then increases your physical defense whenever you receive damage. This one, whenever you receive damage, you receive stacks of metal. This decreases cooldowns of defense while you have metal. And then basically this one, whenever you block an attack, decreases receive physical damage by 30%. Sort of like with Auramancy. That blocks the magic damage, this blocks physical damage. Now on to Ancestrals. So defense, there's a lot of different options. With Readout, you can use the basic one. You can also use Stone. Basically with the Stone one, it gives you a little bit more. It's gonna give you the same as the basic one, but a little bit more. It's gonna increase your defense by 10%, which is really good. But the thing is, in order for the Stone one to be activated, basically it activates whenever you receive a certain amount of damage. In Prison, I talked about that. The green one is going to be a straight wall. The blue one is going to be a circle. Then this one is also going to be a wall. Let's see. Oh no, actually the basic one is a circle, but it's a circle that you cannot go in or out of. The blue one you can go in, and so that's the difference. Basically with the green, with the basic one, it creates a circle and nothing can go in or out. With the blue one, you can still go in. So you can use the blue in Prison and then pull enemies inside, and then they won't be able to get out, but you can still pull more enemies in. And then the Mist Ancestral is going to be the straight wall. Lasso. So the Gale one is going to give you 2 charges of Lasso, but the range is going to be shorter, so I don't really use that. The basic one has a longer range, and then Life Lasso targets your allies. Retribution, basic one is going to have a shorter cooldown. The Flame one is going to do more damage. Mist is going to increase your aggro, so only useful when you're trying to draw aggro in when you're like a boss fight or in a dungeon. Reviling Cheer, pretty much I'll always use Life. It's just more reliable. This one it can heal you. It increases your received healing, but honestly I would rather just have more health. And then Stone will increase your max health, but since it's a Stone ability, just like all the other Stone abilities, it only activates once you receive a certain amount of damage. So you get to receive damage to gain more health, which is whatever. And then Bolts of War, we just stick with the basic one because it's the most powerful. Alright, so now let's talk about Songcraft. So Songcraft is a buffing and debuffing skill set. This is really useful in PvP because basically you can use Songcraft to debuff enemies, and they are very strong debuffs. In PvE, they're useful. The buffs are useful. And you could also, well, the debuffs also, some of the debuffs apply, but not all of them. So in PvE, mainly you're using it for the buffs. So pretty much starting the first skill, Critical Discord. This will decrease enemies' physical mag defense. If you have the flame one, it decreases it by 30%. That's a lot. So use Critical Discord and decrease your enemies' defenses and kill them faster. Startling Strain. So Startling Strain and Healing Him, the Stone Healing Him, these are similar skills. Basically they are what we call charms, and the way that charms works is basically once you apply charm to an enemy and then you play a song, it's gonna apply a debuff to them. And so Startling Strain is gonna be a single target charm. When you use Startling Strain on an enemy and then that enemy dies, it's gonna reset that cooldown. Healing Him, the Stone Healing Him is gonna be an AoE charm, so it applies to multiple enemies, but the cooldown it doesn't reset. So single target and cooldown reset on the Startling Strain, AoE and no cooldown reset on Healing Him. But generally you want to have both because they're both useful. Then let's go ahead and talk about Dissonance. Dissonance decreases enemy skill damage, so it makes your enemies weaker. Double time, this basically makes you run really fast. Really basic, really simple, and really fun. Deadly Refrain, if you use Deadly Refrain, you can stack this ability. It's going to increase your crit damage and heals, and decrease Songcraft skill cooldowns. You won't really use this as a melee. It's a really annoying skill. You probably want to just use it in general. Sonic Wave, this is going to basically, when you use it on targets, it makes it so that they will not be able to target you. So this is good for dropping. Well, this is mainly used in PvP to drop aggro. You can use it like when like an archer or a mage is targeting you. You can use Sonic Wave on them, and then they won't be able to cast any single target abilities on you. And then battle him. Basically, you play a song, you cast it for 3.5 seconds, and it gives you more move speed and attack speed. Really good buff. So now let's go ahead and talk about the songs, which combo with your charms. So Ultra Recovery, basically, when you use this one on charm target, it's gonna do continuous damage on them and decrease your max health. You won't really use this as a melee. Actually, we don't really use this at all. Like just in general. Quick step, if you use it on yourself, it's going to increase your move speed. If you use this on a target that's charmed, it's going to decrease their move speed. Really basic. Bulwark, this is basically the most powerful debuff in Songcraft. It decreases physical and magic defense of your enemy by 50% when they are charmed. This is super powerful. Literally cut their defenses in half. And so if you use charm and then you play Bulwark, you're gonna be able to kill like anyone. And then also it's gonna buff you by increasing your defenses. So increase your defenses and decrease your enemy's defenses. And then Bloody Chanty, this decreases enemy skill damage and increases your skill damage. So basically the way that you use charms is you hit either Starling Strain or Healing Him, and then when they're charmed, you'll see this icon, the charmed icon. You play a song, and then they're debuffed. And then basically, when they're debuffed, actually you'll be able to see how long the debuff lasts. So when they're charmed, the debuff lasts for like 5 seconds. You'll need to continue playing the song to keep the debuff alive. So make sure that you keep playing that song. Even though there's charm, the charm is going to last a lot longer, but just keep playing the song. If you're in a raid, generally people will play songs, so you don't really need to do it. You can just throw charms on people, and then people will play songs and then apply those debuffs. Looking at the passives, so Discord Dissonance are always going to hit. This increases the performance time of the songs. This one, whenever you get a critical hit, it's gonna increase your crit rate, and that one is really good. This type of performance, this works with Deadly Refrain, so we don't really care about this. Lingering Impact, basically this increases the duration of performance skills, so this is actually going to increase how long your charm lasts, or the debuff that you use when you use charm. So once you use charm and use the songs, the debuff is going to last longer if you have this passive, and this increases the range of your songs. So this is also good to have. Well, if you're a melee, you probably don't really need it, since you're going to be in melee range. Yeah, you don't need to be 25 meters away, but yeah, so yeah, you don't really need it as a melee. In terms of ancestrals, so Starling Strain, you want to use the wave one because that's going to be the one that resets the cooldown. Healing Him, you want to use Stone because this is the one that's actually a charm. Sonic Wave, we don't really use that much as a melee. Quickstep, I always use the basic one. For Discord, you want to use the Flame because it's going to decrease the defenses by 30%, which is the most. And then for Dissonance, go ahead and use Flame because that one does actual melee damage. Alright, so now let's start talking about some classes. So I'm going to start talking about the Shadowplay classes first, starting with Executioner, Battlerage, Shadowplay, and Occultism. So as far as assassin classes go, this is probably the easiest one to play, and the reason why is because Occultism has really hard CC that combos really well with Battlerage Shadowplay, and honestly this class you can just press buttons and random words and kill things. So basic combos with Shadowplay and Battlerage, Hammer Toss, Shadow Smite is going to trip, and then Whirlwind. If they're tripped, you can use Sunder Earth to do more damage, just like that. You can also as far as using Occultism. You can combo like Hell Spear with Tiger Strike. Hell Spear and Tiger Strike is a trip combo. You also want to make sure that you use Pin Down as fast as possible to get the bleeding, and then use Whirlwind for more damage. You can also do Crippling Mire for a slow, and combo that with Whirlwind for a really easy and instant trip. Whenever a target is tripped, honestly just hit Sunder Earth. Because that cast time is going to be best used when they're on the ground. Or you could also combo it with Backdrop. You could also do Summon Wraith, and then basically the Wraith is going to slow them, and then you just Whirlwind, and they're tripped. Generally, with Executioner, I like to take Summon Crows, because if you're fighting other people in stealth, you just hit Summon Crows and it will reveal stealth enemies. Boneyard, really good for just trapping enemies, and also when they're in the Boneyard you can actually hit them while they're inside and they can't do anything to you. And then also whenever you do your Shadow Smite combo, you can go ahead, Shadow Smite, and then use Persistent Strike after. This is gonna basically put you behind the enemy, and then that'll give you more backstab damage from Persistent Strike. Now, as for what this class is good for, mainly PvP. Executioner is really good for just locking down a single enemy, CCing them forever, and then just killing them. Really good for PvP. For PvE, it's good. I would say it's good at low levels, because you can just use the CC, and that way they won't damage you, because you just have them either impaled or tripped. And then you could also heal yourself with Absorb Life Force. And that's another thing, you want to make sure that if you're fighting somebody that's getting healed, you use Absorb Life Force pretty much as soon as possible and as much as possible so they die. Alright, next we're going to talk about Shadowblade. So Shadowblade, Battlerage, Shadowplay, and Witchcraft. This is a really powerful PvP class. Also probably the hardest class to play, if I'm being honest. Not really great for PvE. Witchcraft doesn't really do much in PvE, so I would say this is pretty much strictly PvP class. So as for your combos, basically with Witchcraft, starting with like Earth and Grip, you can use Earth and Grip to snare a target like that, and then if you use Stone Sunder Earth, it'll basically instantly trip them like that. So you can use that Earth and Grip, and then combo with some behind enemy lines for an instant trip. If you're playing Shadowblade, you want to go ahead and use the stone behind enemy lines, because this is going to combo with your fear and your snare. Enervate, pretty much you want to use this before any trip combo, because this is going to increase how long they are tripped by 30%, which is a really long time. So you want to use that before, for example, Charge, Hammer Toss, Shadow Smite. Well, I don't think that went off, but yeah, if you use it before your trip combo, it'll leave them tripped longer. Next, you can use Banshee Wail and Terrifying Roar as basically an instant trip combo as well. Banshee Wail will fear, and then Terrifying Roar is basically going to trip any feared targets like that. And then once they're feared, you can just straight up kill them. This class has a lot of chain trip combos. Like you can literally do like you can engage with like behind enemy lines, whirlwind, and then do, once they get up, you just hit them with Banshee Wail to fear them, and then roar at them, trip them again, and then Hammer Toss Shadow Smite, trip them again. Mirror Warp, really good mobility. You can use that to engage in a fight or get away. And then for Lassitude, you can pretty much use Lassitude in a fight to sleep a target. It'll slow down their attack speed and move speed first before sleeping them. So you want to use that, and then you want to use that on a target that you're not hitting. So you can use that either if you're about to engage on a target alone, or if you're also trying to like disengage, you can just like use that, put them to sleep, and then escape. And then also don't forget, you can use your with all Shadowplay classes, you can use your drawback Thunder Earth combo. So trip target and just backdrop, charge, Thunder Earth, and do extra damage. Easy money. Right, so next we're going to talk about Blighter, Battlerage, Shadowplay, and defense. So this class can be a little bit of a oxymoron, because basically with Shadowplay you're trying to be an assassin, and with defense you're trying to stay alive. And so it's kind of weird, but it can be a good combo if done correctly. So main thing is you want to make sure that you have Boastful Roar. Basically just use Boastful Roar and Whirlwind, trip your target. Boastful Roar is going to combo with your Whirlwind. It's going to make the target really, it's going to give you that distress debuff, which is, like I said before, pretty much like the strongest debuff in the game. So make sure you use this on anyone that you're trying to kill. Lasso can be good if you're just trying to, like, you know, pull someone to you. You can also do something like a lasso and then use that to initiate your Hammer Toss Shadow Smite combo. Like that. You could also pretty much use a Violating Shear and give yourself some extra health. So to be honest, as a dueling class, this is really good since it does give you a little extra tankiness. Also with Retribution, you want to pop this in every fight as well. That's just gonna make it so that your enemy is gonna take damage when they hit you. And then you can also utilize Imprison if you're like, again, like if you're dealing somebody, you don't want them to escape, you can trap them in your little wall. So this class, basically, the main strength of it is it's all going to be in Boastful Roar. This is the most important ability in defense. Use Boastful Roar to very powerfully debuff your target. Go ahead and do your trip combo, and then if you need extra survivability, you got a Revitalizing Shear, gives you extra health. Retribution is going to give you some extra damage. Lasso for you know, pulling them to you if they're trying to run away. Imprison, keep them inside. Alright, so now let's talk about Blade Dancer. So in terms of pure damage output, Blade Dancer is pretty much going to be the strongest class. The reason why is because with Songcraft, you can debuff your target's defenses as well as buff yourself, and so the total damage output from this class is just insane. So main thing you want to know is that you got to make sure that you have Sterling Strain and Bulwark. This is basically going to reduce your target's defenses. So like for example, let's see, I'm going to go to one of these guys, and you can see my attacks do about this much damage. And then if I charm them, so if I use Sterling Strain and then Bulwark, and now you can see how much more damage that does as long as you keep up the charm. So I mean, literally like almost doubles the damage. So literally just hit them with Sterling Strain, charm them, CC them, and then hit Bulwark, and I mean, just The damage is just insane. So Charm, hit Starling Strain for CC, and then hit Starling Strain, hit Bulwark to reduce their defenses, and I mean, you can kill anyone. Also, you can also use Bloody Chanty. This is going to increase your damage as well as decrease their damage if they are charmed, so that can be useful as well. Generally, when I am charming somebody in PvP, I usually only get Bulwark off because playing the song is gonna it's gonna basically get in the way of your combo. So I only really have time for one song. Also, Bulwark is honestly enough because most people will die if they get charmed and bulwarked. And then also if you don't have the time or you don't have the cooldown to hit both these abilities, you can just go ahead and use Critical Discord, and it's going to reduce the target's defenses by 30%, which is not as much as 50% that you get from Bulwark, but I mean 30% armor reduction is still a lot. So this is honestly like a one-hit charm. You just hit Critical Discord, reduce their defenses by 30%. And so in terms of damage output, Blade Dancer, really good for PvP. In PvE, I would not really say it's very useful, just because in most cases you only really need charms if you're fighting higher level mobs like in Ipnia or Garden. So I guess if you were going there, then yes, this class would be good. But in most other scenarios, I would say this is mostly a PvP class. Alright, so now we're going to start talking about the Auramancy classes. So with Auramancy, basically it's going to make you a lot tankier, give you a lot more defense. If you want to kind of play more like a frontline engaging type melee, then you're going to want to have Auramancy. So first we're going to start with Bloodreaver. So with Bloodreaver, this is a very well-rounded class. I would honestly say this is one of the best melee classes just in general. If I could only play one melee class, to be honest, it probably would be Bloodreaver, and that's just because it has such a complete kit. You have a lot of defenses, you have a lot of CC, and it's really good for keeping you alive, but also gives you a lot of damage. So main combos with Bloodreaver, basically, usually when I enter a fight, start with health lift, just give yourself more health. If you're fighting mages or you're jumping into a raid, hit Courageous Action, hit Convergent Shield. That way it makes you immune to that Witchcraft and Sorcery CC. If you still get CC, you can go ahead and hit Shrug It Off. And then pretty much with Occultism, your main CC, Hell Spear, same as Executioner, you can use Hell Spear and Tiger Strike combo to trip. You can also use your Crippling Mire and Whirlwind to trip. Use Upthrow Life Force whenever you have it to decrease healing of your enemies. And then also with Auramancy, Auramancy and Occultism combo so well because of this, the best skill in the game, Vicious Implosion. You can pull enemies together, and so these combo really well with, for example, you can use Shadow Vortex when you clump up a group of enemies. Let's see if I can do that right now. So you use Shadow Vortex, and then Implosion, and then basically all these enemies are sucked in. And when they're there, you pretty much just keep CCing them. You can use your Hell Spears, you can use your Crippling Mire, and then just Whirlwind and kill everything in there. You could also go ahead and, what I like to do is drop Summon Wraith, and inside of the clump, and that's gonna slow everything and probably be like one of the easiest ways to just delete a whole group. So let's see if I can find another group. Let's see, let's go over here. So I'm gonna pull these guys and then literally drop a Wraith, Implosion, and then just hit your Whirlwind, and it's going to trip everything in there. And so this is also a really good combo. This class is honestly like very good for both PvP PvP and PvE. In PvP, this is a really good survivability class. You can keep yourself alive with Absorb Life Force, and stun your enemies with Hell Spear and all your other trip combos, Crippling Mire, Whirlwind. And also in PvE, since you do have Absorb Life Force, you can heal yourself, and so this is a really good class for soloing. If you need to solo like any bosses or hard dungeons, this is usually my go-to class for when I'm basically going into something new, because it's really good at keeping you alive and keeping your enemies CC'd. And so Bloodreaver, I would say, if you're just looking for a class, you don't know what to do, go ahead and play Bloodreaver. Alright, so now let's talk about Hex Warden, Battlerage, Auramancy, and Witchcraft. So this class is very unique. It's going to be, even though we're playing Witchcraft, it's going to be very, very different from Shadowblade. Whenever you pair Auramancy and Witchcraft, basically you become sort of a raid breaker class, where basically you can CC a group of enemies just to separate them from their raid without necessarily killing them. And the reason why Witchcraft is good at that is because with these forms of CC, they last longer. But if you hit an enemy that's CC'd by Witchcraft, the debuff is going to basically disappear. So you basically want to use it to clump enemies without basically just to remove them from their raid without necessarily killing them. So like, for example, we can use basic 1 Bubble Trap and Implosion. That's going to trap all the enemies in a bubble like that. And then basically you can separate these guys from their group and then go on somewhere else. You can also, for example, use Implosion and the Earthen Grip. And with this one, with Hexblade, since we're using more AoEs, we're playing with the Quake Earthen Grip, which is going to be the one that hits multiple targets like that. And then when you hit them with that, it's going to snare them, just like that. You also have one of the best trip combos in the game, which is Banshee Wail and Terrifying Roar. Basically a giant AoE trip. You just use Banshee, the Fear, and then Terrifying Roar is going to trip them. And then you want to do that pretty much after you pull them in with Implosion. So the full combo would be Implosion, Banshee Wail, and then Terrifying Roar for a giant AoE trip. As always, we want to take Enervate. Good for anti-healing, so disabling healers. Mirror Warp, general mobility. And then in Auramancy, same thing, we want to always have Thwart, Vicious Implosion, and then with this class, since you are more of kind of like an off-tank frontline class, you do want to have more points of Auramancy to keep alive. So I'll generally always take Conversion Shield as well as Courageous Action and Shrug It Off, so that way you can survive in the front line. This class is pretty much just for PvP. It's not really going to do much in PvE, but as PvP, it's a really good frontline melee class. Alright, now let's talk about Abolisher, Battlerage, Auramancy defense. So Abolisher is basically your maximum survivability class. Whenever you pair Auramancy and defense together, that's going to basically make you a tank. Well, it won't make you a tank, but it'll make you very tanky. So pretty much with this class, Auramancy, you want to have Thwart for your shields, Courageous Action, Shrug It Off, Redoubt, and Refreshment is going to be your CC breaks. So this is also really good, not just to stay alive in general, but also just to escape from CC. You literally have 4 abilities that are for breaking CC, so this is really good in raid PvP where the enemy has a lot of Occultism and Witchcraft and Sorcery. You can just break free from all of it with these 4 skills. Revitalizing Cheer, you want to pretty much have that up 100% of the time just to give yourself 20% extra health. Lasso is Lasso, you know, Boastful Roar, just like in Blighter. With Boastful Roar, this is your strong, powerful debuff, so use this on whatever enemy you want to kill. And then of course use your Retribution to basically damage enemies that hit you. And so with Abolisher, honestly, since you have Auramancy and defense, Auramancy is going to give you a lot of defenses against magic, and defense is going to give you a lot of defenses against physical damage. So this class is really good for both PvP and PvE, especially if you're a low gear scorer. Back when I was around like 10-11k gear score, I was playing Abolisher and I could easily survive in raids against, you know, players that are like 16k average. So Auramancy defense, really good at keeping yourself alive, as well as being a really good debuffing class with Bolts for War. And then also in PvE, if you want, you can use Abolisher to basically draw aggro to yourself. If you were doing that, you would want to take Toughen, use Toughen to basically increase your aggro whenever you use Triple Slash. And then you want to use the Retribution, that is this one, the Mist Retribution. That's going to increase your aggro as well. You basically use those two, and then you'll be able to draw aggro on anything. Alright, so Herald, Battlerage, Songcraft, Auramancy. This class is basically, I would say, PvE only. This class, the main strength of this class is that you have the fastest movement speed. Any combination with Songcraft and Auramancy will give you a lot of move speed. You have double time, quick step, combat spoon, teleport. Basically, you combine these, and it will make you very fast. And so that's kind of the main strength of this class. The main thing I use this for is really just running for dungeons. It's really good for, you know, if you don't have a mount, like in dungeons, since you can't use a mount, you can just use these movement skills, and it's really good for getting around. But also, it is also good for PvE because with Songcraft you have your charms. Just like in Blade Dancer, you want to make sure that you use your Starling Strain and Bulwark to reduce the target's defenses and pretty much eliminate them from there. And so this is mainly a PvE class. I wouldn't really use it in PvP. I would just go ahead and use Blade Dancer for more damage. Also, since you don't have Shadowplay, you will kill a little bit slower in PvP. Auramancy is mainly, in this class, Auramancy is mainly just for that extra utility, for that extra speed with teleport, combat spoon. So not really ideal for PvP, mainly just for running dungeons. Alright, and last but not least, we gotta talk about Darkrunner, Battlerage, Shadowplay, Auramancy. So, as I've been talking about throughout the video, Shadowplay classes are going to be more assassin type classes. Auramancy is going to make you a little more tanky. So what happens when we combine both of them? Basically, we get a very versatile and a very flexible class. There's honestly an unlimited amount of ways to play Darkrunner. The way that I prefer to play it is with a little bit more points in Auramancy, just help stay alive, and then in Shadowplay just have the essentials. And then pretty much you keep your basic combos, your charge, hammer toss, shadow smite, trip, keep your backdrops under earth for fast cast times, use pin down as soon as possible, free runner, give yourself some move speed buffs, and then with Auramancy, it gives you just a ton of utility. So you have mobility with teleport, you have Vision Explosion, good for if you're farming both mobs and players. I mean, you can pretty much use Vision Explosion to clump up any groups. The real strength of combining Shadowblade and Auramancy is you're just mobile. You're very fast. You're able to get around. And so this is a really good class for if you're in PvP and let's say like you can honestly perform both functions of both being like a frontliner as well as going in the back of a raid and assassinating some targets. So it's really flexible in that way. And then PvE, it's also really good because it's just so fast in general. If you go ahead and take like Frenzy and Flame Freerunner, it'll become basically a farming machine where you just have so much extra damage and you just kill enemies every 10 seconds to keep your buffs up. You can also play it as more of like a glass cannon class where you have less points in Auramancy. Typically in Auramancy the essentials are just going to be Thwart, Teleport, maybe Convergent Shield, and Implosion. That's pretty much the essentials. And then if you want more points in Shadowplay for say more damage, you can go ahead and take sometimes you can take Poison Weapons, you can take Leech, and just whatever it takes to get Throw Dagger. And Throw Dagger is just going to be really good for countering a lot of shields. You just use Throw Dagger whenever somebody has any kind of shield up, and it's gonna basically kill that shield. And so this is good for also being Assassin. So it's just a really flexible, really versatile class. The skills that you take is really dependent on your playstyle. The only downside of Darkrunner is that since you don't have a dedicated CC skill tree like Auramancy or like Occultism or Witchcraft, it's going to be a little bit harder to CC your targets. So you want to make sure that basically you're strong enough to get your trip combos off without sacrificing too much. And so for that reason, generally in PvP, this is more of a good class if you're a high gear score, because you can pretty much just, you know, use your hypermobility to get around and just honestly hold down triple slash. If you're more low gear score in PvP, you probably want to take Occultism or Witchcraft, just that you have that extra CC to help keep your targets down. Other than that, that's gonna be Darkrunner. Alright, so that's gonna conclude my short little guide on basic melee classes, skills, and just how to choose a melee class in archerage. Honestly, the best bet would be just to kind of figure out how you want to play, try out all the skill trees, all the skill sets, try out all the classes, and see what works best for you. The best class in archerage is the one that you're most comfortable with, and also the one that's the most appropriate in your situation. Don't try to get stuck on one class. You have the option to change your classes around for a couple silver. So change your classes around a lot, learn what they're useful in, and what you're comfortable with, and you got it. Thanks for watching.